This penny isn't worth 1 cent. It's worth $10 billion, at least for this video, okay? And it's going into the Treasury to be spent on an entire year of the Environmental Protection Agency. Here's how much went to unemployment and NASA. Last year, more than $6 trillion, or 627 pennies, were spent on different programs. But that required taking on more than $1 trillion in debt. Let's go to the board to look at federal spending, including that debt, and the ways the U.S. could borrow fewer pennies. But first, where did all the pennies spent in 2022 come from? Here's how many came from revenue, things like individual income taxes and payroll taxes and corporate taxes. Congress is responsible for both these totals. They set the tax rate and they authorize the spending. But since these don't match up, the Treasury takes on debt to cover this difference. They do that by selling securities, like say a 20-year bond. An investor gives the Treasury money and the Treasury would pay interest on that every 6 months. They'll do that until the 20 years is over, and then the investor will get their money back. But those interest payments add up.
That is one of the expenses that people who worry about the debt and the deficit like to focus on the most, or they see as one of the biggest problems, is how much does the U.S. government pay on an annual basis just on paying its previous debts.
In 2022, it was a lot. 8.5% of all spending went to paying interest on that debt.
The concern is that so much money over time will start going just towards the debt that you may not be able to spend what you want to spend on other issues.
Here are the other places the U.S. spent money in 2022. This biggest section here is all Social Security. These sections, Medicare and Medicaid. This third biggest section is the military. Then there's the Department of Education. Most of this is student loans, the cost of Biden's potential student loan forgiveness plan. There's tax credits like child credits, Veterans Affairs, and nutritional services like SNAP. The rest of this other category went to smaller places like coronavirus relief, the Department of Transportation, or Homeland Security.
Beyond Medicare, Social Security, interest payments on the debt, and the Pentagon budget, everything you think of in terms of what the federal government does on an annual basis is actually a small minority of actual annual government spending.
In 2022, more than 20% of that spending was funded by taking on debt. This is the total amount of debt built up every year. It's currently a little over $30 trillion. And there's a cap to how much this can be. The infamous
debt ceiling.
Debt ceiling.
Debt ceiling.
That limit is currently $31 trillion, an amount that the Treasury is set to hit in June. When that happens, they'll be unable to take on extra debt through those securities, which means there won't be enough cash to pay Social Security benefits. Seniors won't get their checks. Neither would members of the military. And these debt holders wouldn't get their interest payments.
That would create all sorts of financial and economic problems. Because U.S. treasuries are viewed as kind of this safe haven asset for the global financial system, there's this idea that if suddenly investors thought, well, if I buy U.S. government debt, I might not get my money back, that there could be a sell-off in U.S. government bonds, and that would raise interest rates across the world economy.
It's up to Congress to pass a bill that the president then signs to raise this limit so that doesn't happen. Both parties agree this chart should go down, but they disagree on how to do that.
If you're trying to reduce the deficit or eventually even reduce the debt, it is to either cut spending or to raise taxes.
Many Democrats want to raise taxes on the rich and corporations.
I want to make it clear, I'm going to raise some taxes. If any of you are billionaires out there, you're going to stop paying at 3%.
While Republicans largely want to see spending cuts, and they want those cuts as a condition for raising the debt ceiling. Kevin McCarthy even promised to do it as part of his deal to become Speaker.
A responsible debt limit increase that puts us on a path towards a healthier economy.
But Democrats want just a clean raise to the debt limit to be able to pay for this spending Congress already approved.
It is something that should be done without conditions. We should not be negotiating around it.
So if there were cuts, where might they come from? Cuts to Social Security and Medicare seem to not be an option.
Social Security and Medicare is off the books now, right? They're not to be started. We got unanimity.
And not all Republicans support cuts to the military.
I think there's room for savings in the military, too.
We've got to get spending under control, but we are not going to do it on the backs of our troops.
Which only leaves these departments and discretionary programs as places for cuts.
It's safe to say that marginal cuts, while something that may be worth considering in various ways, and whether it's a wise use of resources to begin with, are not necessarily something that's going to make a major difference towards reducing the deficit or balancing the budget, for example.
While Democrats and Republicans may disagree how to do that, they both agree that the U.S. can't let the penny stop.